In a real life or death situation, most people freeze. They panic, make one wrong move, and it is over. The 5 people on this list did the opposite. One cut off his own arm to get free. One fell 2 miles out of the sky and lived. And one led his entire crew through nearly 2 years in the most hostile place on Earth. These are the greatest survival stories ever told. Number 5. Aron Ralston. In 2003, an experienced climber went canyoneering alone in a remote canyon in Utah and told nobody where he was going. As he climbed down a narrow gap, an 800-pound boulder shifted and pinned his right arm against the rock wall. He was trapped standing upright with 1 liter of water and a cheap multi-tool. He waited 5 days. His water ran out and he drank his own urine. He recorded goodbye messages to his family, certain this was where he would die. And then he made a decision that is hard to even think about. Using the dull blade of that multi-tool, Aron Ralston cut through his own arm to free himself. Then, bleeding badly, he rappelled down a 60-foot drop with one arm and walked out until he found help. Number 4. Juliane Koepcke. On Christmas Eve in 1971, a 17-year-old girl was flying over the Peruvian rainforest when the plane was struck by lightning and tore apart in mid-air, 2 miles above the jungle. Still strapped into her seat, Juliane fell all the way to the ground, and she lived. She woke on the floor of the Amazon with a broken collarbone and one eye swollen shut, the only survivor out of 92 people. Remembering that her father once said following water downstream leads to people, she waded down rivers for 11 days, past caimans and snakes, her open wounds filling with maggots, until she found a boat and a shelter. She had fallen out of the sky and walked out of the jungle. Number 3. Beck Weathers. In May of 1996, a Texas doctor was high on Mount Everest when the mountain was hit by the deadliest storm it had ever seen. Up in the death zone, where the air is too thin to keep a person alive for long, Beck went snowblind and collapsed in the blizzard. His teammates found him barely breathing and beyond saving and were forced to leave him in the snow. He lay out in the open through the entire freezing night, and by morning he had been declared dead. Twice. And then, hours later, Beck Weathers opened his eyes. Frozen almost solid, his face and hands black with frostbite, he climbed to his feet and walked back into camp, like a man returning from the dead. He lost his nose and both hands, but he came off that mountain alive. Number 2. The Andes Survivors. In October of 1972, a plane carrying a young Uruguayan rugby team and their families crashed high in the Andes Mountains. The survivors were stranded at 12,000 feet in brutal cold, with almost no food. Weeks in, an avalanche tore through their shelter in the night and killed several more as they slept. As the weeks dragged on, slowly starving to death, they faced a decision no one should ever have to make, and chose to eat the bodies of those who had already died, just so the rest of them could live. After 72 days, 2 of the men climbed over a 17,000-foot peak and trekked 10 days until they found a farmer on the far side. Of the 45 people on board, 16 came home alive. Number 1. Ernest Shackleton. In 1915, the explorer Ernest Shackleton was trying to cross Antarctica when his ship, the Endurance, became locked in pack ice. For months, the ice slowly crushed the wooden ship until it splintered and sank, leaving 28 men stranded on a drifting sheet of ice at the bottom of the world, with no radio and no one even aware they were in trouble. What followed is considered the greatest survival story in history. The men camped on the ice for months, then crowded into 3 lifeboats and rowed to a barren rock called Elephant Island. From there, Shackleton and 5 others crossed 800 miles of the most violent ocean on the planet in a single open boat, and somehow hit a speck of land called South Georgia. They climbed over its frozen mountains to a whaling station. And then Shackleton turned straight back around to rescue every man he had left behind. After nearly 2 years stranded in Antarctica, not one of his crew had died. So what did these people have in common? They were not superhuman. A climber, a teenage girl, a doctor, a rugby team, and an explorer with his crew. What they shared was one stubborn refusal. In the moment when giving up would have been easiest, They chose to take one more step, and that decision is the only reason we know their names. Thanks for watching.